Welcome to the Modco podcast. Conversations about life, organization, entrepreneurship, and everything in between. This show was created for every woman who needs motivation, inspiration, and a reminder to give herself grace. The mission here is simple: be transparent, non judgmental, authentic, honest, and to have fun. Because sometimes you need to laugh at yourself. I'm your host, Angel. Sit back and get ready for valuable tips, resources, laughs, and more. If you've been hanging around for a while, welcome back, and I hope you brought a friend. If this is your first time here, welcome, and thanks for joining. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode. Today, I am talking with Cyndee Sparre. Cyndee is a devoted wife, mother of two teenage boys, and passionate Christ-based podcaster for the God-Wink podcast, where she shares inspiring stories of divine intervention and faith. As a keynote speaker, Cyndee specializes in teaching how to leverage business networking to build and elevate personal and professional brands. She is also the founder of two business networking companies, My Collective Network and My Christian Business Network, where she fosters meaningful connections among business professionals and faith-based entrepreneurs. With a heart for mentoring and community, Cyndee empowers others to grow their network with purpose and impact. Everyone was welcome Cyndee. Hi, Cyndee. How are you?
Good, Angel. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So, everyone, fun fact, well, this episode's not going to air until 2025, but we are recording in 2024. And I recorded for Cyndee's podcast yesterday. And so, we will definitely chat some about her podcast so that you all can go take a listen to that one. But, Cyndee, is there anything else you would like to share with us before we fully jump into the episode?
I think that was the best summary ever.
Well, I always love when people are like, that was the best summary ever. And I'm like, well, you read it. Like, oh, yeah, I did. Shit, no. On your behalf, I should say.
I know. That's for real.
Oh, yes, that is my favorite part. So, you have two businesses and a podcast. So, how did you get started with it?
So with the businesses, I started that a couple years ago in 2022. I really loved connecting people and had this vision of a collective network where it was like independent networking groups. There were a lot of like people starting their own. And I'm like, what if we could make this like funnel where all these independents filter into it and we're pretty much marketing them because a lot of times they were like the underground groups like, oh, did you hear there's a group in Clinton Township, like
Right.
that kind of thing. And I had, as I kicked that one off first, My Collective Network, I then felt called to start a Christian networking organization within 30 days of launching My Collective. And the reason being is, I don't know about you, Angel, but you ever feel like when you're out and about networking with others or networking virtually, sometimes you can feel uncomfortable bringing up the topic of faith because people, may respond in a way of, hey, there should be a separation of politics and religion from business networking. And I wanted, obviously, we want to be respectful of that. I still wanted to have a place where I felt safe with other believers where I could talk faith because God to me is the center, the CEO of my business. So I wanted to create a space for people to be able to come together and talk faith and also almost discipleship with one another of how are you putting God first and making him the center of your business. So I launched that one 30 days later and started seeing the people from My Collective Network and My Christian Business Network coming together and building friendships with one another.
Oh, okay.
Um, and so I thought, wow, Lord, like he gave me a little peek behind the curtain of this is how Jesus, like, this is how I work. You go out into the community, right? You go out into the world, you shine a light, right? And people sometimes, don't, it's not even bringing the name Jesus into it all of the time. It's that they're like, there's something different about this Christian, right? There's something that I'm attracted to their character. And so the collective ones were building friendships because they were attracted to the believer's character. And a couple of them came back and said, I got baptized, I got saved.
Wow.
I came back to the Lord. I had like drifted from the Lord, and through this relationship, it really helped, plant a seed to bring me into the faith aspect of it. So,
Okay. I love that. And so you've been doing both of those for 2 years, you said?
a little over 2 years now, because it was in the summer of 2022 when I launched each of those businesses. So, yeah.
Okay. And were these two the first time that you had ever launched a business, or had you done like your own business before?
No, so I worked most of my career for Walgreens Pharmacy since I was 16.
Oh,
Believe it or not, I was a loyal one. I went from 16 to 36, 20
oh,
years.
yeah, you were definitely loyal. Yes.
Yeah, I'm rare compared to, a lot of how the generations are now that move, for promotions and all of that. But
Yes.
I there's just so much opportunity at that time with Walgreens, and worked my way up to a regional level. So we had about 100 over 260 stores, I think it was, when I left, but I was in the HR department. So it was training and development, recruiting, and that's what built a foundation for me to be able to eventually launch my own companies. But it didn't come overnight. Like, it's a preparation that God does in us. It's like, okay, first you're going to shepherd here, or you're going to learn these experiences through HR at Walgreens, and then I'll bring
Right.
you to the next step, which you always think, man, I feel like I'm all over the place, but everything decision you make, there's intention behind it.
Oh,
So I did get into financial services with a company for about 3 years to work up to a regional vice president position. Uh, I still felt like that I wasn't quite where I was supposed to be. I was more about networking. So I had to network to build my book of business for finance. And through the
right.
process, I decided, I told my husband, I just want to do this full time. Like, I feel like God is for me in this, and he's calling me to this. And my husband said, well, if you're hearing it from the Lord, who am I to hold you back? He's like, go for it. Start your own companies.
Okay. Okay, cool. And you said something that kind of stuck out to me because about, like sometimes like he's preparing you for something else. Like he's like, learn this so that you can be great over here. That was one of my lessons that was very hard for me, like working, because I'd be in a job and I'm like, I just do not like this job. This is just not for me. And I'm like, okay, God, why do you have me here? What is the purpose of me being here? What am I supposed to be learning? And I would hold on to that for a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks, until something else frustrated me. And I'm like, why am I here? Like, not even just like, God, why I'm here, just like, why am I here? What am I doing here? There can't be any lesson that I'm supposed to be learning from this. So funny that you
Frustrating.
said, yeah, it's funny that you said, because I can just remember the times that I was like, there's nothing that I'm learning from here. I'm just here twiddling my thumbs, wasting my life away for some reason. But every now and then I'll see something that I've learned from like a past job come into handy or come into play. And I'm like, oh yeah, I got that. Or I know how you're supposed to do that. And I'm just like, oh, okay. I guess that was why I was there. So I don't,
Yeah. And
yeah.
you gotta have that mentality, right? Like, because then you feel it's like a sense of defeat. Like, why did I do that? This is frustrating. No, have a sense of gratitude on it. And one in particular was the company that I pivoted to from leaving Walgreens and going into financial services. Um, the products they offered, um, absolutely loved. And I loved their mission of what they were doing, like really helping families get out of debt, properly protect themselves. Completely fell in love with how they were helping families. The interesting piece, though, is in the business networking world. this company was known more for recruiting than they were known for financial services at times, just whenever you got into the business networking world. And I would come home sometimes bawling my eyes out. I'm like, no one's even giving me the time of day because, they think I'm going to try and recruit them and I'm not. I really love doing investments and, you know, protection and teaching people how to get out of debt. Like that was really my heart. But then God's like, are you going to keep it as lemons or are you going to turn it into lemonade? Prove to these people who Cyndee is. Show them your character, show them that you genuinely care about helping them grow their business through referrals and that you genuinely care to hear their story of how they got to where they're at. And so as I changed my perspective, it brought me into having grit in networking. So if I can go from a challenging, hey, you work for that company and getting bucketed and then turning people's perception based on who Cyndee is, I thought, man, I can get through anything when it comes to business networking because I've went through being rejected, or feeling that sense of rejection just based on the company that I represent.
Yeah. And I think with networking, like that's the hard part about anything is rejection, but definitely networking because it's like a great tool, but I know I've had some not so great experiences with networking. And one time I went to a networking event and shortly after the event, I wanted to do my own networking event or something like that. And I reached out to some of the people. No, I did want to do my own, but I was reaching out to the people for different things. I had a friend of mine, she was trying to get a book published. And I was like, oh, I just met this lady at a networking event who knows publishers. I'll connect you. So I reached out to the lady and I never heard back from her. And then someone else said they were looking for something. I was like, oh, I just met someone who does this. And I like reached out to them and I never heard back. And it was like that feeling of rejection. I spent my time at this networking event talking to these people and now it's just nothing. It's cricket. So it's
Yeah.
it can be very hard. And it's even harder when, as you said, it's, oh, you work for that company because they're not seeing Cyndee. They're seeing that you represented, Walgreens or whatever company it was that you were working for, which is another lesson that they taught us when we worked in customer service. They're like, they're not mad at you. They're not upset at you. They're upset at the company. But right now you're the face of the company. So they're taking
Yeah.
it out on you. And so having to separate that, especially when it's your job, to be like, no,
Yeah.
this is me. I work for them, but I'm not them. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think that through it all, like I remember my first networking, I was trying to get into a well-known business networking organization nationwide, and they had people from the company I represent previously, and they're like, "No, we're not going to have individual that represents that company in our groups." And I mean, I went home and I was just like, all the one-to-one coffee dates I had with the members, like we got along great. We even did referrals based on it. And I remember it was down to a last chapter, and the chapter was actually in my city that I live in. And I'm thinking, please, Lord, make a way to be accepted into this group. It's in my town. And
Right.
they ended up saying yes. They said, listen, we've had people from your company, not the best of experience, but you did one-to-one coffee dates with every member in our group. So we would like to invite you in the group because we think that you're different. I'm like, God, that was God. That was
Yes.
totally
Yes, it
God.
was.
I was just like, oh my gosh, I finally got in one.
Yes, it's like, yes, it's about time. Thank you. Yeah, that was definitely God there. And sometimes it takes that perseverance and that kind of keep going. I know a lot of times you're just like, okay, I've tried this, it's not working. I'm just gonna give up now. But then sometimes you always have that, well, what if this is the one in the back of your mind? So I'm glad that you were finally able to get in and grow and be a part of that.
Yeah.
So, Cyndee, you are also a very busy lady. You have two businesses, two teenage sons, a husband, and of course, you just have a life in general. So, how do you balance all of that?
Well, I will tell you first that it's a work in progress. Only Jesus is perfect, and I am far from it. Uh, but I will tell you the biggest piece for me when I can see my lifestyle in. I know people don't like to hear say in balance, but I really did feel like I had balance. Was back in February of at the early this year, February 2024. I started working on spending time with God every day. So it was in the morning I would start because I learned at night I had nothing left in me and it didn't end up happening. And if it did, it was bad quality, Cyndee.
Yeah. I
So
understand that.
and some are opposite, totally fine to do it that way. But I'd wake up in the morning, spend even just, 15 minutes, half hour with the Lord, which turned into longer as our relationship developed to where I yearned more time with him. But I would do just simple things like read a devotional for that day and then go into the Bible, read that chapter so that I could get an understanding of the context. Because even though I own a Christian business networking company, that doesn't mean that I didn't have room to improve my relationship with God on a personal level, not just show up on Sunday, like not
Right.
just do a Bible study. It was like I had opportunities where I needed to spend time with him daily. And as I did it, the words started coming off the page on the Bible. Um, and it was like I was seeing him in a whole new way. And as he was doing that inner work in me on a daily basis, what then started to happen is I had I don't know how to say it, but he did a miracle on a prayer that I did one day where I said, God, I cannot even improve my health alone because I fail every time. It turns into the diet. And I don't want a
Mm.
diet. I want a lifestyle. And that time I was 40 pounds heavier than I am now.
Ugh.
And so I went down this journey and I remember walking outside one day and the Lord told me, I'm doing an inner and an outer work in you. So I need that inner work to have started with you spending time with me so that I could move in your life on the outside as well. And that included my health. So I started walking 2 miles a day. I started listening to Christian podcasts. Um, I started spending 15 minutes just to, do a toning video at home. But this is the thing. The normal Cyndee that's tried to do this before did not work out. Like I always failed. Either my eating habits went bad. I didn't make time for exercise. But as this full circle inner and outer work started happening, my family time got better, my energy got better, my business and what my output and leadership got better because I was developing as well and listening to podcasts. And I thought, wow, I have never felt in my entire life that things are in balance. And if they got out of balance, like say there was a lot going on, I didn't stress over it. Like I felt like I had this overwhelming sense of peace that God's like, it'll be fine. Cause we talk every day. And,
Right.
I just didn't have the stress. Now, if you asked me today, am I still in that same place? No, but it's because I chose it. Like I chose
Mm.
not to make that a priority consistently. And as I was getting ready today, I'm just like, I want to come back. And in my mind, I think of it like the garden. I bit the apple, but I'm coming back. And this is going to build perseverance of spending time with the Lord every day. And I'm not saying like he's got a checkbox, like you missed Tuesday, Cyndee, and I'm very
Right.
disappointed in you. Like,
Right. Yes. How dare you? I noticed that you have been absent 10 times and tardy 5 times. You're at risk for being held back.
yes, because that makes you just run. You're just like, I
Right.
will never measure up to God. But God is such a loving father that I'm just like, no, I just want to. Like, I feel like I need to fill my cup, my spiritual cup. And
Right.
it still amazes me as I hear myself talking right now. Angel, I was never an evangelist until I started seeing him in such an amazing way, which led into the podcast last December. Cause I'm like, okay, I know you're knocking on this, but I don't have time for it. I
Yeah.
don't. I have two businesses, right? Like you said, I'm like, I got all this stuff going on. I don't have the time to do a podcast, but I love hearing people's stories. So God's like, I'll give you peace about this. I'll never give you more than you can handle. And what is the scripture? Philippians, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And so I said, okay, I'll be balanced and I'll add the podcast. That's the list.
Balancing and adding stuff, standing on one toe, juggling, but I'm gonna make it work. So,
Yeah.
well, tell us about the podcast, God Wink.
Thanks for asking. The God Wink came about because I used to do like 6 coffee dates a day because I love networking. And
Yeah.
so I got to a point where I'm like, man, I wish these stories I'm hearing over coffee with people were on the mic because in essence, we truly are the voice of the Lord, like just telling the good news of what God's been doing in each and every one of our lives. And I remember uh this was a couple years, or no, maybe about a year and a half, 2 years ago. I was sitting with a group of ladies for one of our Christian business network groups, and one of the individuals was sharing a story about her wearing butterfly print underwear and how she never wears butterfly print underwear. And she said it ended up someone in there. Um, Butterflies are like a God thing that God's always worked through. And when she saw her underwear, she's like, "You're wearing butterfly print underwear." She's like, "I know, I never wear print." She goes, "No, I'm so glad I saw your underwear." It was the weirdest. And, and so she's like, "I really needed that today." And it's all ladies. There's like 15 ladies in the room as she was sharing the story. And we were like, man, that's like a God wink for that person. And all the women went, that was a God wink. And it finally clicked because I used to think, like, what would I title it for a podcast? Because I think Testimony Tuesday is taggy, but it's used by a lot of people. And that was what I needed for him to say, move forward with titling it the God Wink, where people can share where they know God showed up and either maybe they prayed about something or just something where they knew that God was in it saying, "Hey, I see you. I hear you and I've got you. Wink, wink."
Okay. I like that.
So
I love that. Yeah. I know we chatted about it a little bit when we did our coffee chat, but I definitely wanted the audience to hear about that. And the butterfly underwear story gets me every time because, it's not even the fact that she wore the butterfly underwear. It's the fact that she had on pants that you could see them through. Like, did she not realize this? I mean, in essence, if she hadn't have had on the see-through pants, she wouldn't have came up with the title for the name. But it just really just makes me wonder, did she not realize that you could now I'm just picturing this lady in like these white linen pants with these butterfly underwear on, and it's just I did she not have a friend around or a family member to be like, man, we see your butterfly print underwear. It's just I don't know, all that's running through my head. Like the story, of course, it all goes together. It makes perfect sense, but at the same time, I'm like, why, ma'am? Why?
I think that's what we think a lot of times when the miracle happens. We're like, really? Through that?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, and then again, it just makes me. I tend to overthink things and like kind of like deep dive into stuff because it's like, well, you were in there with the group of women, so did God only make her underwear visible to like this group so that she could get the wink, and then when she went out other places, like the pants were no longer transparent and see. All of this just goes through my head because I'm very curious. Like, did other people see these butterfly print, or was it just in that group? But again, that's just me overthinking, going down a rabbit hole. But these are the things that run through run through my head, Cyndee.
While taking a shower. All right.
While taking a shower or at 2 a.m. when I should be sleeping, I'm just like, huh. So How did this work out? Like, yeah, I'm gonna have to let you know if that pops back up in my head at two at 2 a.m. I'm sorry. But I'm glad that it all worked out for you and that, you were able to get the name of your podcast from it. And it's a really
Yeah.
funny story to share with people.
Yeah. Well, I was like, here I've got this title and I was all excited, but then I also had these rules of, okay, I still don't have a capacity for this, and I don't want to bite off more than I can chew. And really, all the fear set in of more of the enemy saying, you're ill equipped. You don't even know how to run a podcast. You don't have equipment. Uh, more than anything, the enemy does not want more like believers getting on a mic talking
Mm,
about the miracles God's doing. And so
exactly.
I said, well, Lord, I really, I, my home office is not ideal aesthetically for sound to be able to do a podcast. Um, and I don't have equipment and I don't have the finances to be purchasing equipment. And so I says, if this is really what you have called me to do, Lord, here I give my demands, right? I need someone to offer these things and not have a cost behind it. So within a couple weeks, out of nowhere, I had a co-working space called Office Evolution here in Troy, Michigan. The owner, Colleen Buddy, reached out to me and said, "Hey, have you ever considered starting a podcast?" She says, "Why don't you just do it at our new studio? We just put together a podcast studio." And I'm like, "Equipment and all?" She's like, "Oh yeah, we got the Roadcaster and everything." I'm like, "Okay." And in return, she's like, "Plug us on your podcast." And I'm like, "Have you been talking to God? Like, where'd this come from?" She's like, "I have no idea what you're talking about right now, but we just built the studio out." So, another individual, I said, "Well, I don't know how to edit it." Um, and so once again, it was more fear because I really could have easily figured it out because I use CapCut a lot.
Okay.
But I had an individual say, "Hey, I'm looking to get my name out there for editing podcasts. If you'll plug us, we'll do your editing for you." And I'm like, "Are you talking to Jesus?" And they're just like, "What?"
What?
And I said, "Well, you're part of multiple God winks that are going to launch this podcast. So to this day, now I do my editing and everything. I got past the fear and I'm doing those pieces, but I've been able to witness people coming on the podcast, and a majority of them have never even been on a podcast as a guest. So that's faith building for that individual as well. And especially when they walk into the studio at Office Evolution, they're like, "This is the real deal. Can I get a selfie?" It's just the cutest thing.
I love
They're
it.
like, "I feel so, blessed to be on this podcast." And so through that, though, afterwards, when they finish, because they're so nervous usually before we finish it, right after we stop recording, I've heard multiple people say this inspired and motivated me to be a voice in different ways. Some said they felt they were led to write a book. Some of them said they felt led to start a blog. Others said they felt led to start a podcast. And they were all sitting in a seat of fear, like I was, of I don't have time. I'm ill equipped. Really, just the enemy working them, saying, you shouldn't do this. And now to see these individuals, there's three of them. One of them started a blog. One of them even did a speaking engagement a couple nights ago, teaching people how to use Pinterest. And this girl was very quiet. Like she was never the type to have that, I guess, sense of confidence, like to just go do it, use your
Right.
gifts. So that is icing on the cake to have followed through in obedience on the podcast, because now I get to see all these people inspired to be a voice for the Lord and really help and speak out on their faith.
Okay. Yeah, it's amazing how sometimes, I do that a lot too. I'm just like, "Are you talking to God? Did God tell you this? Because I just talked to him and now here you are telling me this." And people, I get this interaction like, what are you talking about? I'm just like, okay, if you don't know, I don't know, but I guess this is what I'm supposed to be doing right now.
Right.
So, Sydney, before we go, I have two more things for you. How did you go from being a solopreneur to expanding into a volunteer team? in the business?
So about 3 months out, uh, I was spending time in the Word in the Bible, and there was a spot that said you needed oxen for the harvest to come. The barns are clean right now, but you're going to need oxen for what I have coming your way. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about oxen? Like, I just knew. I was like, I need to build a team. Okay, I got it. So I knew in essence how to do it in HR at Walgreens.
Right.
But I had went 2 years of being a solopreneur. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to reactivate that. Man, what did we do? Oh, we did disc assessments. Ah, that's right. But what does that look like for the Christian network? Oh, there are spiritual gift assessments. Never knew that. So I started learning through my church at Woodside Bible, um, to uh, take the spiritual gift assessments and start leveraging that assessment, and then leveraging the disc assessment with the collective network to identify people's gifts, talents, passions, right? And I started building teams based upon what they really enjoyed and were gifted in, but also surrounding it more focused on their business and how this would help grow their business through volunteering as a part of the networks. So we have a team of 10 10 people within 3 months, where we developed a system in place to onboard, to have them take the assessment, to have discovery calls to find out if any of these opportunities resonate with them based on their gifts. And it just rapidly turned into a wonderful family of volunteers, actually, that come to my house twice a month for us to talk through different topics that they have top of mind, that they're working on or need to brainstorm. So it was a gift. God's like, you're going to be a shepherd here. I'm going to give you sheep. And you're not only going to help in growing their business, but you're going to help in discipling and them discipling you, right, in the process, to come together and grow in the Lord. So it was really cool.
Okay. Yeah, that is a cool story there. I love that. And what is your favorite, what scripture has impacted your business the most in the last 6 months?
So in episode 1 of the God Wink, I talk about the biggest impact. And it was when I think it was 6 times in one day, God said, I told him, I'm overwhelmed. I have anxiety. I have too much on my plate. I need your help. And through the radio twice, through a random person in Atlanta, this is all within 24 hours, through my own decoration on my wall that I hung up was the scripture that he was speaking. And it was Philippians. I can do all things through God who gives me strength. And that tied so closely into spending more time with them, like writing in a prayer journal, throwing all my cares into writing them out and talking to the Lord through that daily time. So uh, yeah, I think when people put the right things in order as priority, and mine was putting God first, all the other things will work themselves out. And you can let go and feel like you don't feel overwhelmed, overburdened, fearful. Because as an entrepreneur, solopreneur, it's not it's not an easy road. It's going to take grit and faith that God gave you that purpose, for that vision. Even be thankful for it, have a sense of gratitude, and lean into him, like when you feel just like beat down, or am I in the right direction, that those types of feelings.
Well, Sydney, thank you so much. It has been so fun chatting with you again, back to back, 2 days in a row here. And everyone, make sure that you check out Sydney's podcast, God Wink. It's a really great podcast. I have been listening to it myself, and it's wonderful to hear the stories when people have received their God winks and what it is that God was winking about. The episode that I listened to, I can't remember the guy's name, but it was a guy who was, I think it was your November 14th episode, because it's the most recent one, he was waiting for a FedEx package, and FedEx had said that it was delivered, but he couldn't find it. And so he was like out driving around the neighborhood or something. And he just like heard this voice saying like, turn here, then make a right here, make a left here, something along those lines. And so the show, you get stories like that to really show and see where God is working and how he's working in people's lives. So everyone definitely check out Cyndee's podcast, and it will definitely be linked in the show notes.
I was going to say, check out your episode, which is launching Thursday, December 19th.
Yes, that is correct. Thank you. I was like, I couldn't remember the date in the top of my head. So yes, y'all go back and make sure that you listen to my episode that aired. Thank you, Cyndee.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, everyone. I will talk to you all next time. Bye. Are you loving the Modco podcast? Head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star rating and review. This helps others to find the show and gets the show listed in the recommendation section. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the episode and that you're able to gain something from it. Talk to you next time. Thank you to Chris Leonard for the music for this week's episode.